so happy to have this opportunity to speak with Jesse Gold. And Jesse, thank you so much for joining me. Can you tell me how your day has been so far?
Todd, the day has been fantastic. Only because, some mornings you just wake up and you're just not feeling it. Some days you feel like you're a human again. You're like, man, I like what is like I just don't I'm not right. I've had my coffee, whatever it is. I got the sunlight. I went through my routine. But I think just following through with the routine in of itself kind of gave me that grounding. I don't think it was so much like, oh, the workout did it, or like it was just actually following through and say, oh, I did it in spite of the adversity, like that mental block feeling. I'm like, oh, well, I still did it. So feeling good as a result of that.
That's that's so
Not
cool,
feeling good
man.
before that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good insight because I'm sure all of us have this. Like, I don't think that anybody gets away from the experience of where you wake up and you're just like, man, I'm not excited about what I'm about ready to do, or I just can't seem to get my mojo going. And you're right. Every now and again, there's those days where you just go, oh, I feel so good. I wake up, I feel in a great mood. I can't wait to tackle everything. Do you find that it is completely random, or it sounds to me like you have systems in place to kind of set yourself up for success to some degree or another? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. As far as having the systems in place, um, helps tremendously when you're kind of alluding to that. Um, Definitely have systems in place. Definitely not somebody to be like in the biohacking realm, not obsessing about, having the perfect thing. If I wake up and I can get out to the beach, I'm only a half a mile from the beach. I can, I'm fortunate to sit down for the sunrise. I can drink my yerba mate or my coffee and meditate for a few minutes, 15 minutes. I'm pretty happy and get a workout in some sort or yoga. Um, I'm stoked.
That's cool, man. And so, everybody listening, you can know Jesse teaches a yoga class here on Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. And I've had the pleasure of getting to know you, Jesse, for years now. I don't even, I can't give you a number. Do you remember how old were you when you first came to practice here?
Yeah, that's funny. I think maybe like 14 or something, 15
I
maybe.
think it
It's
was. I
been a
remember
while.
it's been a while. I remember you came with your brother and I got a chance to work with both you guys. And it was such a great opportunity because as an Ashtanga yoga teacher, often I'm always hoping someone will be excited to move around and be challenged by yoga practice. And so, well, both when you and your brother showed up, I was like, oh man, this is so cool to have some young guys that are like excited about yoga. Do you mind sharing your age now? How old are you now?
Yeah, so 27 now. Been
27. So we're talking 10, 13 years ago. That's cool, man. Well, I'm so happy to have this chance
wow.
to keep building our friendship and together over these years. Yeah, man. Can you
Right. It's just good.
no, that's cool. So I can you tell me a little bit what you were talking right before we started about your experience surfing recently? Because I thought it was a really good point that you made about being on the board you're on.
Yeah. So being a surfer, you learn to surf on these wave storms on this about 8 foot foamy board, sometimes or 10 foot. So it's a bigger board and there's a lot of surface area you get to learn. And it's made out of foam, so if you hit your head, God forbid, you're not going to get hurt. At least that bad. You'll get a little knock on the head or whatever. But so the point being, you learn on it. And then when you get so, you advance your skill set, and on a bigger day, you take that thing out, you might look like a goofball. But, in this case, and so last week we had some swell here in Jupiter. And so I was like, my other board snapped. This is all I have right now. Whatever, I'm going to take it out. Just swallow the pride, whatever. And it was just a moment of realization, like, I get to be out here now. Like, why? I don't. It was so silly to think like, oh, I need to be on, the Kelly Slater of shortboards and need to rip the hardest for everybody because like they got to show them, and just really getting to know myself, like in my tendencies, like oh there's some definite, like not just competition, healthy competition, but there's some like some fire, some ego, some sort of um,
Mm.
like I wouldn't mind getting into a fight. I'm like, why is this coming up? You know, like this primal sense of like, I really hope that dude cuts me off because I don't like the way he looks at shirts. Like, where did that come from? Where did
Yeah.
that come from?
Yeah.
But I was just happy to be out in that board, man. It was upon that realization.
Yeah. That's a really good one. I think that comes with a little bit of time too, like maturity, don't you think? Because that's it's hard to have that sort of mind frame back when you're 14, 15, 16, because it seems so much about that, like trying to establish oneself in the pecking order, and if you do one thing that doesn't look cool, that's going to set you back down to the bottom rung. And then we get a little older and we go, I just don't even care.
Yeah, yeah, because what are we all doing out there? We're all out trying to experience like a wonder of the world, like a wonder of nature, just a true phenomenon. And we're getting to spend time in the water, very healthy, very zen like. It embodies what a yoga practice could feel like. It just this whole beautiful thing, right? And different people, different folks, different strokes, but some people out there for competition, people, but we're all out there for the same essence, like the same thing. And so it's beautiful to be able to share the water with so many different kinds of people and just show up as a light, so that if people are having a weird day, or if I have this idea of what somebody's thinking, or draw a story about who they are, even though I've never talked to them a second in my life, most times I'm drawing up a negative assumption. I end up talking to them. They're just like, hey, what's up, man? All the negativity evaporates. I'm like, wow, that was so silly of me to even assume. Like,
Yeah. Good
well, I'm
point.
just out here surfing.
Good point. While we're on this topic, I'm curious, what or how has yoga blended with your surf life? What sort of similarities and parallels have you drawn over the years?
Yeah. Um, Surfing and yoga kind of seem to, they're like two different expressions of the same thing for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Like when I'm on my mat, I feel like my surfboard is my mat on the water. And instead of going through postures, instead of going through poses, trying or asana, trying to, you know, get into alignment on my mat on my board, I'm just trying to, feel each paddle stroke, really just trying to make it a moving meditation. I'm really trying to feel, oh, like, am I paddling kind of efficiently? How does that feel in my shoulders? Do I have posterior pelvic tilt? Am I keeping a neutral pelvis? And essentially, just how in tune with my body can I get with mind body, that connection, and then integrating the breath. How well can I breathe? How so I can increase my efficiency on the water, so I can get to the spot, and the whole thing just blends into one thing. I think I learned a lot about that and the subtlety of surfing through a physical asana yoga practice. Um, because then starting out, it would be like 16 or 17 and just full on into CrossFit and full on into like the head banging into the wall, metal music, the whole shebang, and be like, it's just the physical part of it. I just want to get super strong. I just want to do all the handstands. But then it got more subtle as the years gone on and came back through injury and this and that, and I just realized how subtle of a practice it really is, and now I'm realizing how subtle it can get. Just as I go on and realizing I actually don't know really anything about it, and that's a really cool and humbling perspective. So to tie that in with the surfing, I feel like the surfing part and the yoga part, two different expressions of the same thing, is what I'm starting to see it as. Yeah.
Nice. That's cool, man. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience with teacher training that you got to partake in Costa Rica? I think it was last year, I believe. Is that right?
Last year in June of 2022, it was incredible. It was learning a lot of the things that I sort of already knew and was restated in a way that was very digestible. I'm like, oh yeah, that. Um, so a lot of the material were things that I already kind of knew or understood, intellectual or I just embodied in my own practice. But man, it was in Costa Rica. I got to spend a month down there, practicing more or less every day. Like 3 days in, man, being a little off topic, but I got sick, super sick, and that some other people got sick as a result of that. But the whole thing, like the sickness, actually brought everybody together a little bit more. And it was very cool, man. It was some of my best friends in my life are from that teacher training, it was actually by an accident. Means to go and take that teacher training, it kind of just came into my life, and uh, and that's how I know. I'm like, I had no intention of signing up for this teacher training to do this, and here we are. And now everything unfolding in life now is an extension of that teacher training. It was incredible.
That's
Yeah,
cool. That's awesome. That's so cool to hear. What part of Costa Rica was it in?
it was just south of Jaco, maybe about 20 minutes, and then so by Hermosa, and then up into the mountains a little bit. Um, so it was very cool. You could look out through the jungle and see the ocean in some parts, and you had a little bit of altitude, um, toucans outside, the whole thing. Monkeys
Yeah,
would come and steal your bananas in the morning.
nice.
Very peaceful. Yeah,
That's
it
cool.
was incredible.
It is a beautiful country, isn't it?
Dude.
And man,
Man,
I know you got a chance to go to Morocco a while back ago. Can you tell me a little bit about what your experience was like in Morocco?
yeah, Morocco was actually. I had a friend who recommended that. Well, he said he's going, and if I wanted to come with, tag along. I'm like thinking about it. I think it was 2019. I was just getting back from a long road trip post college, and I'm like, yeah, I guess this is what I'm doing now. I'm going to
Yeah.
Morocco, so I worked a little bit and threw some money together, and I think we left in very early January 2020. We got to Morocco. We did a work trade, um, essentially bartended and ran the breakfast in exchange for free room and board, free food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The exchange rate there, not positive. I mean, I wouldn't quote this, but I felt like it was at least 10 to 1. It was a lot. It was really nice for an American to go to Morocco and walking outside, getting these fresh loaves of bread every morning. So basically surviving off of bread and whatever vegetables you find in the Medina. The bartering was super fun, very overstimulating. Um, Couple of interesting encounters. Definitely learned not to, have a public outburst, get angry at somebody in a foreign country because they'll try to kill you, and there are things like that. But most of the route is so nice,
No,
and
that's cool. Do you mean like a public outburst in the sense that like if somebody says, the price says it's this and they tell you it's double and you say, but wait a minute, it says this over here and is that what you mean? Or like was it what type of when you say outburst, I'm just curious, like an example of what an outburst would have been like.
I'll give you the quick story. It was a we had been there, and I'm here to give you a little bit of context. My buddy and I, we were walking around the Medina, which is basically it looks like Aladdin world. Everything is just pastel colored, and there's markets, a little hole in the wall, kind of pop up shops and rugs and smell of argan oil and motor oil, and so they don't really restrict those. They don't have restrictions, or very tight ones on emissions for those motorcycles. So people riding through the streets and really close quarters. Anywho, we've been there for like 3 weeks. I was getting a little sick of it, and I'm like, I'm not in a good headspace. I'm just like, dude, I'm just out here to get food. I'm going back to the hotel. I'm gonna take a nap.
Yeah.
And so this guy, the people around the Medina, there are these people that sell hashish, and so they'll go around and just go hashish, hashish, and you know usually that doesn't bother me. I wouldn't care less. But in that instance, it's just like, I'm gonna tell this dude what's up. Like I'm not, like he's got right in my face. And usually, even then, I'm peaceful. I don't care. But I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, hashish. Like showing him like, oh yeah, clearly he's interested. He got all excited, and I just
Mm.
looked at him like, you know what, just tell him what's up. And then he just pulled out a knife. All of a sudden, he's just like, flip, just the whole thing flipped. And his buddy ran out, and they were like acting like they're gonna jump me, and I was like, oh, okay. I'm like in the middle of a crowded street, and so I realized in that moment I should probably watch what I say. And
Yeah.
so I kind of had to backstep and
Yeah.
get out of that situation. Everything ended up being fine, but I learned very quickly, when you're in a different country, you don't speak the language, maybe not, bite your tongue.
Yeah. Don't instigate.
No, no, I instigated, and I learned the lesson without much consequence. Thank goodness, but
Yeah.
it could
I
be a
hear
lot
you.
worse.
Yeah, that's a good story.
Yeah,
I hear you, Jesse. Good example. That makes perfect sense. I know sometimes I remember, like you'll be in a place where, obviously someone who's hawking the goods or the wares is really hungry for making a sale. And, you're wearing sunglasses and you're holding a lighter and they come up and want to sell you sunglasses and a lighter, and you're just like, but I don't need it. Like I'm okay. Or something like that, and it can be intense, right? When people really are like trying to sell you something, it can get intense. They just really just don't stop.
dude, it's like you really get to learn what your communication skills are about, like how up to par you are, and how assertive you can be, standing your ground and not being too aggressive at the same. Like you get to learn in a country like Morocco or different places. This is anecdotally speaking. I don't want to apply it to every place. Be it here in America, Miami.
Yeah. Yeah, correct.
But people just haggling you. You just get to learn how to say no, but in a way where they get the message. You feel good about what you said, and everybody goes on with their day, and
Great point.
they don't get the wrong. Yeah, and
Great
but
point.
getting your point across for sure.
Did you
Um,
get a chance to practice yoga in Morocco? Was it something that you were able to do self-practice, or did you venture into any sort of yoga shalas in Morocco? And what is the yoga scene like in Morocco? And is there a yoga scene in Morocco that you found?
Yeah, definitely. There was one shala, and I can't remember the name offhand. I'll have to look it up. But the shala I found was in the heart of Marrakesh. That was the city. The city we're saying is Marrakesh. Beautiful city. And it was in the heart of the city. So yeah, I went one day and just stumbled upon it. I'm like, I need refuge. I need to find something away from the stimulus. And so I walked in, and it was like this open air courtyard. There was a kind of tree it is. This beautiful green kind of bushy tree in the middle, and as well manicured. It kind of reminded me of like a Zen or a Buddhist temple. It had that sort of air to it.
Mm,
Everything was very well manicured. There was almost like a Zen garden, like the sand garden where they break it. You break in the sand.
yeah.
Like that's interesting. And so there was I like this kind of shaded outdoor class because it was hot in Morocco. Um, but they're doing a meditation class. I was walking in, so beautiful. And so they had a couple of Ashtanga classes going on. Funny enough, I ended up taking a class, and it was just such a relief because almost halfway around the world, I was doing something where I felt so at home.
Mm,
I felt so like what a sigh of relief because that backpacking trip was starting to get a little overwhelming and repetitive, redundant. what am I doing here? The existential questions come up. It's not a vacation. It feels like the opposite of a vacation. You're thinking about every little detail. It's very nice to have that grounding
Yeah.
and people that are like, hey, not only can you slow down, stay as long as you want. We have tea over there, and it's about the community. It's not like, hey, get in, get out kind of thing. Back into the street you go. It was just beautiful to have that. There were not too many shalas or studios in the city that I found, but I know that on the coast, when I took a bus over to Tagazu, really world-renowned surf spot, all the hostels, almost all of them, seem to have, it's like a synonymous, like surf and yoga.
Mm,
The hostels be like surf and yoga, almost all of them. And so people were teaching classes at the beach, a lot of Europeans and foreigners coming in. So they had a big audience already, kind of like I think of the name of it, but just a lot of open-minded folks coming through. Yoga is very synonymous with that crew, and it was just beautiful. Like a lot of
that's
art,
cool.
a lot of yeah, some incredible little spaces on the rooftops too. It's like you get a view of the way it's while you're practicing, and you're just like, I can't wait to surf. I'm trying to stay present, but I can't wait to surf as soon as we're done stretching because that was awesome.
Yeah. Oh
It's
man, those right
incredible.
hand point breaks and the headlands in Morocco look so otherworldly. That real red rock kind of moonscape landscape, and then these long right hand waves. I mean, it looks so beautiful. It looks absolutely amazing.
They have one of the best, besides Rincon in California. This had to be the best right hand point break I've ever surfed, and I was blown away. I was like, it was fast. It was a fast wave.
Yeah.
It broke and it went, but it went forever. Like you kind of just there were sections, and you could kind of hop on to like the next section if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You get a few turns in, your legs start burning, and you either paddle around and back around the back around the jetty and kind of start over.
Yeah.
But what a place! It was superb. The surf culture was ridiculous, like in a really beautiful way. Everybody was just hanging around, arms around each other, very very connected in that way. So like the human touch element of it, and just the way people communicated, and just how open everybody was, like strangers. A lot of them are travelers, very
Yeah.
kind of transient place, but just you know, there was a Billabong surfer guy there. It was very cool. I was like, this is wow. I'm just gonna take this in.
It,
Watch these guys surf, get in the water with them and surf. Like, wow.
it looks amazing. I'm curious, Jesse, then you come back to Florida, and Florida is a really unique place to be in the ocean in relation to being a surfer, because we have long flat spells, and we have, it's rarely all that great. What have you found in just navigating the whole mind stream that comes with, like personally, when I moved back from Australia and I moved back here, I just didn't feel like I even wanted to go surfing because I had gotten so spoiled. And I know that's a horrible, way to be, but sometimes when you have a taste of perfection like that, and then you feel like you're back in your local break groveling for a little 1 to 2 foot slop, you just get disillusioned. Have you experienced that, or what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, actually, when I moved to
Yeah.
college, yeah, very much the case. Uh, Took the words right out of my head. Um, but when I first moved to Colorado in after that trip, after the Morocco trip in 2020, that feeling came up of like, oh, I'm here. What do I even do? Like, I mean, I know you can hike and ski and the whole Four Seasons deal, and I'm all with it. But surfing just has a place in my heart and life deeply. There's river surfing there, and so you get kind of this rounded off, really high density. really high volume board, almost like a paddle board, shorter, like 6.5 feet, but really fun. You jump on, kind of hop on the wave, and you get some turns in, and then there's a little line, and people would go. And so there was that. Doesn't quite scratch the itch because I would get back to, well, actually, when I get back to Florida, I'd actually look forward to that. It was like the reverse what you just said. I'm like, I'm actually glad I have salt water in my skin. The water's warm and there's waves.
Mm,
Really get lucky and just come back at the right time. But
mm.
coming back from California, um, surfing in Santa Cruz and getting one of their best swallows of, like, seems like years. What people are saying in the water, and then flying back to Florida that next week, I was like, dude, what do I even do? Like, do I have to go to the gym now? Like, I just want to. All I want to do is surf. What do I do here? And
Wow.
that's when the paddleboarding came back in. It was like, I guess, it's flat, whatever, but
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
it's hard to scratch that itch. So when you have a good break like that, I mean, life is good. You
Yeah.
got life good. Figure
Yeah.
it out. You got a good break in your backyard. Kudos.
I hear you, Jesse. I mean, I also find too now, like on Saturday, my son is really getting in, Ethan's really getting into surfing and wants to be at the beach every spare second. And so he's like, we gotta go, we gotta go, we gotta go. And I've just been working so much and haven't been going much. So I was like, all right, we're doing it. And I got a chance to go out at Civic Center here in Jupiter, and it was small, it was like shoulder high or whatever, but I didn't catch a bunch of waves because there were so many people out and it was like everyone's going for it. But just to be out in the water, I think I had a similar experience to what you were talking about being on the soft top and being like, what am I doing on this thing? Like, but just and I just thought, just it's about getting out in the water, like just being in the water. Like it doesn't even really matter so much about what waves, how many, size. I mean, but that's where I'm at currently in my life. Like, I'm like, dude, if I can just get out in the water, I don't care. So I can agree with you. I have a
100%.
similar sort of feeling. Like, even if there's nothing, but just to like float in the ocean, just to go out there. So on that note, I'm curious, what is your relationship with breath holding, free diving, and pranayama? Where are you at these days with exploring breathing, yoga, and say water experience of floating or sinking?
Yeah. It's been a while since I've been doing any sort of free diving. Um, I'd love to get out there. One of the things with that, it is a little bit of an excuse, but it's so much easier when you have a boat in town. It just, you have the intercoastal, you have a few local bridge spots when the water's nice and stars line. It's great. But really getting deep, practicing in that way in the ocean, there's nothing like it. It's been a while since I've done any sort of open water freediving. Love it. The pranayama breathing though has been kind of the replacement for that for now. And there's been almost every morning now, I'd say 4 or 5 days a week. I'll go down to the beach right before sunrise and sit down and do a few different breathing techniques. I'll either follow a video on YouTube from somebody I really respect and love, and it's just a great content, great video, great breathing exercises, and and do that for about 30 minutes. I love how I feel. I love how well connected I am to my body, um, and how much control I feel like I have after the session. I'm like, oh, I'm so relaxed because I chose to be relaxed. It sounds a little almost like, yeah, duh, but it's just how much I can smooth out the wrinkles
Mm,
in my mind, or the ripples in the water of the river of my mind. I can smooth it out and be like, oh yeah, I can do that, and you can come back to that when you date. It doesn't have to be a 30-minute session. It can just be a few breaths, but just being intentional and then using the breath as a vehicle to get back to that state. It's just been an absolute game changer.
nice. What is so would you mind sharing who you like to watch on YouTube to follow breathing technique or breathing ratios or patterns?
I'm gonna butcher his last name. Um, Mikhail or Michael. That's his first name, Mikhail Michael. I'm so bad at the names. then I think it's Bikjer. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah,
Um,
if you look it up and send me the link in the show notes, I'll put below. So if anyone wants to check them out, but we can give them some props if you're enjoying them. I'm curious what what technique or style or what does that pranayama practice sound look like?
yeah, the one I've been doing, it's got four different breathing techniques, starting off with a guided 5 minute meditation, getting as still as possible, and then moving right into Bastrika, so really getting into the pumps. Uh, I think Bahia Pranayama comes after that, the long retention exhale, all the way out, holding all the way back up. Um, and then Nadi Shodhana, crossing alternate nostril breathing. And then a few different, well, few, there's like five ohms, five, six, seven ohms, nothing um, crazy. There's another, there's another breath sequence practice. I just can't think of the name, but it is a great series. It's like 30 minutes long. And I usually cut it short right before the ohms and I just do my own thing. But man, it's been such a game changer as far as having something to get grounded in the morning
Yeah.
or in the evening, get charged up.
Does it seem like to you that pranayama isn't very popular? Or do you feel like what are your thoughts on that? Because I feel like asana classes are really popular, but maybe just here in Juneau or Jupiter, Florida, pranayama, has people haven't really caught the bug maybe as much as some other location in the world where everyone's like pranayama, pranayama, pranayama. That's all I want to do. But what have you found with that?
Yeah, I definitely noticed. Yeah, around town. I mean, I think you could say the whole thing was like in the West, yoga asana has taken. It's been taken over by storm. I think in town too. I've noticed there's just a lot of studios that do focus primarily on the asana class, on a heated vinyasa, even yin classes, yin and yang, all sorts of different power classes. Even I've yet to see just a traditional pranayama class, just a breathing class, right?
Yeah.
Um, you know, Kula. I know Kula Scott offers like a transformational breathing, and it's been incredible. I actually tried it last night. It was a really beautiful experience. Um, but as far as like the traditional pranayama breathing goes, I've seen that. It was more like in Colorado and Boulder, there would be more breath work, park sessions, people leading impromptu sessions, and there was um, a lot of people getting certified, breathwork certified. Can't quite recall the person leading the certification process, but they would lead these breathwork sessions in the park. They do workshops, um, and it's really taken over out there. I would imagine another, Boulder-esque places around the country that would
Yeah.
be the case. Here,
Yeah.
I haven't seen that so much. I think it would definitely benefit a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Incredible.
I hear
It's
you.
like a whole other part of the practice, as you well know.
A whole nother world, right? It is pretty
Yeah,
amazing.
man.
I know. I know.
You used to have the class too, right? I mean, I remember before
We did.
my
We
storm.
did.
Yeah,
Yeah, we would do the six pranayams of the Ashtanga style that I learned from Tim, and I kept it going for quite a while. But it was always something that, even if I offered it, say before the Mysore class, and my intention was, the thoughts that people maybe be coming in for Mysore and think like, oh, that's cool. Let me try that out. But I feel like it's something that is just a little more challenging to get the mojo going. Although, when I'd hang out with my teacher Tim out in California, there'd be lots of people showing up for pranayam. I wouldn't say lots, but like there'd be a good 10 to 12 folks, were really curious about practicing every single day. So yeah, I was curious just what you've bumped into over, traveling and over the years, if you found it's taken off. But I'm guessing that you have read the book Breath by James Nestor. I think we talked about that.
it,
Yeah.
yeah. What an incredible book.
Such a good one, right?
I actually went to Barnes and Noble. I didn't even buy the book. I would just go there every day and like, spend 45 minutes, 40 minutes. I would just pop in, read a chapter. I was always looking for something else, but I always came back to me and like, whatever, dude. I didn't even buy it. I just read the whole freaking book over the course of like a week and a half. I just pop in every other day, every day. I'm like, oh, like chapter. And so the science is incredible. A lot of the book seems to be anecdotal. A lot of it based on his personal experience as
Yeah. Yeah.
somebody, as a scientist, learning about the breathing.
Yeah.
Um, but nonetheless, what an incredibly well put together book about, if anything, just re-inspiring this idea of how important it is, giving the significance back to the breathing, just for everybody. Not even for like in the context of like a yoga, traditional yoga asana practice, but just for everybody. We all breathe. We
Agreed.
all
Agreed.
like it could benefit every person on earth.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, are you reading anything now, currently, or recently that you think I need to, or you recommend for us to read?
Dude, I think I'm reading a book that I got off your bookshelf like 5 or 6 years ago. The Journey Home.
The Journey Home. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. I remember your mom. I think your mom got that for you for a present when she was here
Yeah.
practicing. That's cool. So you're
I
actually
think
reading it now? Are you reading it now?
yeah. I'm on like fourth chapter right now.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it? Did you? I don't want to spoil anything for you, but have you gotten to the part where he comes across that rabid dog?
No, not yet.
All right, I'm not going to say anything then.
It's actually I did read it a long time ago. I read it when I first got it. Just
Oh, cool.
rereading it now, and it's just a very visceral experience. Very like
Yeah.
um, you kind of, let's say metaphorically speaking, you go hiking and you do this new trail and it's very novel, it smells good, everything's so alive. And wow, that's incredible. But then you go back the second time, the third time, and it's just different every time because you have like this baseline of understanding of where you are already. I know where to step. I know what it
Mm,
smells like. Check. That's kind of in the background now.
mm,
And then you can peel back more layers. Like, oh, this kind of this moss that grows up that. They're like, I didn't notice those birds up there. I didn't notice how much elevation there is. And so it's been like that with the book and a lot of books in general. Is just like coming back to it for a second or even third time. Never really gave that a second thought.
mm.
So like, I read that book. I just need to rack up, accumulate the number of books that I read, so that I'll be smarter. And that whole
Mm,
idea of like I'll know.
mm.
But coming back to this book, it really grounds me within the context of this book, just how valuable it is to just turn over stones that you didn't even realize were there yet. Oh, like I didn't. What a little golden little nugget under that rock. And so coming back to the book and just looking over different from a much more mature perspective
Yeah.
now too.
Oh,
Been really
I,
cool.
I hear you, Jesse. That's really amazing. I'm going to try to synthesize this idea and then ask you what you think. Um, I recently had the pleasure of reading a book called The Trauma of Caste by Thinmori Soundarajan. So, really interesting book, just detailing the caste system in India. And then I started reading a new one called The Covenant of Water by last name Verghese, Abraham Verghese. It takes place
Okay.
in South India and it starts in the 1900s. And it's slowly starting to weave in a little bit of the element of the caste system into the storyline. And so I'm like having this experience of like, I'm so glad I read that book, that book first, the trauma of caste before I went into this covenant of water, because it gave me so much backstory about the history and the culture that I love that experience where it's almost like you read something that's related but unrelated, and then you just really can grasp what you're getting into because you've done a little bit of research or homework on it. Isn't that amazing when that happens? I don't know if you've I'm sure everyone feels that way. I mean, I can't just it's got to be a universal thing, but do you notice that as well?
Yeah, it's like it is that idea of like you really get into something like a book like that, and there's just different like different stuff comes up to you because there's so much going on in the world as it is. Reality is such there's so much information, there's so much going on at any single given moment, and so you're only going to be able to decipher and take in a certain amount of information at any given time. And I feel like when you read a book like that, you get a perspective of like, oh, that's really like, wow, that's going on in the world right now. You know, as you're saying with this book and
Mm.
a genocide, what? You
Mm.
know, here I am complaining about
Yeah.
there's no weight, and so that it gives you that perspective, and then you come back to the book again, or read a book that gives you a different perspective on that same thing issue, and then you're like, oh, that's a different angle from a different person that has a different perspective on the same issue, and you're like, what? I know nothing,
I know
and
nothing.
like, you know, like how cool is that? How
It's
humbling is
so
that?
cool.
How
It's
enriching is
it's
that?
so interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fascinating. One of the concepts that I thought was just so cool about this is that the what Thenmori Sundarajan brought up was a new style of Buddhism called Navayana Buddhism, which means the new vehicle. And this idea that because of the Brahmanism in the caste system, where, 2% are kind of held on high and the rest are all kept down low, that, or I don't know what the percentage is, but a small percent sitting up high and the other percent, larger percent sitting down low, that Buddha was a way for people that were maybe caste oppressed to be able to connect with a Sangha or a spiritual community that where they weren't being held oppressed or repressed. And but he brought up this person Ambedkar, who I guess in 1936 wrote a like a reinterpretation of Buddha's teachings, and even past. I came across this idea yesterday that even something like the ideas of karma and reincarnation, he didn't believe actually was a true teaching of Buddha, because the premise of karma and reincarnation, well, if we don't look at karma, but we just look at reincarnation from the angle of whatever you do in this life, Jesse, you might pay for that in the next life, be it good or be it bad, right? And that you're going to have a soul that will move over and then deal with those repercussions. And so I can see where that is a little bit harder to digest for some, like, but the idea of karma in terms of instant karma, that seems to make a lot of sense. Like, you kick the brick, your toe hurts. It's like an immediate, like, action reaction. But I guess I just wanted to bring this up because I found it fascinating, just this whole reanalyzation of the ideas of karma and reincarnation that we might have come across from yoga, and thought, well, that sounds really cool. That's so interesting. But then to have someone flip that on its head and be like, no, I reject the idea of karma and reincarnation. So I guess I just wanted to bring that up because I was fascinated by this idea yesterday as I was reading. But I think like what you said in relation to these different ideas, and then like this feeling of like I don't know anything. I don't what I thought I knew is now just like completely not necessary, or not maybe the healthy way or helpful way for me to currently view my world and life. So I know that that's a huge thing to just throw out there, but I guess what are your thoughts on karma and reincarnation? Do you ever think about that? Do you have any thoughts about these concepts?
Yeah, I think I've realized how much I really don't. I've come to the realization that I'm okay with not knowing the entirety of what karma means, because I get so many different perspectives on what karma is. Some people get, what at least what I see, like overly dogmatic on their viewpoint about it. Um, and so, given all that, I really haven't given it too much weight beyond. I don't want to fear doing something uh, wrong or negative because of that being like there being some negative consequence down the line. I just want to live the most peaceful life that I can, get as to kind of remove all the dead weight. I guess if I was going to see karma as something right now, I see it as kind of I'm wearing a weighted vest. I'm trying to make my workout as hard as possible. And the karma in of itself, being that weighted vest, can get you through. Like you can get strong through a workout, right? But if you keep wearing it, you don't take it off, and you realize, well, it served its utility. You've learned through the challenges, the karma you've had throughout your life, and then you allow it to, you let go of it, right? Like these identities, these sort of, yeah, the masks that we
Good.
put on.
That's a good, yeah, I like that visual of, like you said, wearing a heavy vest for a purpose to build strength, but that at some point I could let that heavy vest go.
And letting go, yeah, like knowing when to let go, when to transition, when
Yeah.
there's a different chapter of life that calls for a different and expanded version of you. And so, you know, maybe that weighted vest isn't going to suit your next type of workout because you're trying to be a marathon runner. Or,
Yeah.
it doesn't serve the same kind of utility. So you're wearing that thing and it's like you just look like a goofball on the track now because you were doing CrossFit before and now you're trying to, you know, run 30 miles. Like that just serves no purpose. It's
Yeah.
not going to help you. It's actually going to hold you back.
Yeah.
And so letting go, this whole metaphorical, literal letting go of, so you can move on and change gears.
Yeah, and wouldn't you agree there's just no possible way to know if reincarnation is real or not, if there's an afterlife or not? I mean, do you still kind of come to that conclusion like there's just no possible way to know, so we could just let it go until we have the opportunity to figure it out?
I like to believe there is. I like to believe
All
there is
right.
because I like the idea of it. I find comfort in it.
Yeah.
Um, I I personally don't subscribe to the idea that there's nothing and there's just a black hole and whatever, everything's just dark and black and there's no meaning to anything. Because there's that too. There's agnostic people and and
Yeah.
definitely there's a common theme though. I guess when I see people that like live a certain way, like if they take on a belief and it makes them a better person, even if it's like a fearful idea and they're becoming a better person indirectly, I think it's the same thing as like people coming to a yoga practice because they want to get stronger physically. Eventually they're going to realize, okay, my body's getting strong, but there's something else here. I'm not just coming for the practice of this anymore. There's something else here. Somebody like an agnostic person, even maybe they don't believe, some higher power or some divinity within, or however you want to say it. Eventually they get down the path of like, there's something else here, and it just gives rise to this idea that there's something beyond my body going on, this physical vessel. Like there's some subtle energetics going on. I think that's one of the things I've learned that the practice of yoga, at least from the asana practice and the breathing, is there's definitely something else going on influencing this physical body. Um, and in quantum physics, right? Most of our body is empty space. The most of the space between cells, or the space between atoms, 99% of it's empty space. So why is it that we perceive that our hand is a solid object? And so it almost like the illusion of things being solid. And so there's got to be some infinite intelligence going on that, I'm not able to understand through this brain. I want to
Yeah.
pretend I do, but I just want to be, if there's an afterlife, I also see it as like, you know, as humans, we see things as point A to point B. We're operating on a timeline, but what if you zoom out and all of a sudden this idea of time is irrelevant and everything's happening at the same time simultaneously? So what am I afraid of when my body dies and it goes somewhere else or nothing? Well, it's all happening, and so that idea gives me a bit of comfort because
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. Like empirically, to this crazy mind that I've got in this head, it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm okay with that.
Well said. That's cool. I appreciate you elaborating on all that. It can be a
Yeah.
challenging thing
So
to talk. It can be a challenging thing to verbalize, right? So appreciate you
very much.
patiently
It's
explaining what you're thinking and feeling.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, let me define and kind of extrapolate and draw out this whole human experience
Mm,
in like 5 sentences. Go.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just, you know,
Yeah.
there's so much going on for people, and how do you really describe it? You know, it's
Yeah.
almost like the more complex you want to make life, the more the harder it gets. But things don't have to be complicated. They don't have to be hard. They don't have to be. Why make something harder when it's just not like meant to be hard in the first place? What is the why? Why do we make things hard? Why can it not be simple? I
Yeah.
guess simple doesn't mean it's not hard, but simple can be, you know, following the idea of nature and that path of least resistance to taking the river down the stream. And because that's the easiest way for water to get down, why make it harder? Why? Past a certain point, it serves no utility.
I know, Jesse. I keep coming back to that because I mean, remember when we were both really excited about David Goggins and, this
Yeah.
concept that, if for those of you that haven't read Can't Hurt Me, it's definitely a great book. I mean, it's got to read it, in my opinion. Can't Hurt Me, David Goggins. And I guess there's this idea of make things harder so that I can develop resilience that might indicate that I'm somehow either tougher than life or stronger than the adversity that faces me, or there's so maybe that's the purpose of the friction, because you're right. If I'm a raindrop falling on a mountaintop and my destination is the ocean, I mean, I'm going down the river. I mean, the flow. It's like, well, why should I try to hide over here and not just join the river and go all the way down to the bottom, right? So I mean, but something about like wearing that weight jacket to get stronger is almost like something inside of us feels like, but I don't want to just go down the river. I want to prove that I don't know, stronger than the river, better than the river, bigger than the river. You know what I mean? But I ultimately it seems so futile. But I don't know that analogy
100%.
holds up in our investigation of why am I creating greater resistance than necessary?
There's utility to it, right? Like there's utility to it, but there's so many things going on in my brain when you just said that. Man,
tell me,
totally hear you.
take me down one of them. How long are we doing? Let me see how much time we have left. All right, we're getting
Hold on.
close to the end of our hour. I like to try to stick to some. I knew you and I we could go on. We could go on
Go forever.
days.
Yeah.
I mean, we could even set up a 24-hour challenge. Like, can you hang in with us for 24 hours and
Marathon.
deal with deal with the friction of our minds trying to figure things out? But I do want to hear at least one of those little thoughts that popped up when I started going down that track.
Yeah, totally. I think the idea of like that raindrop, like you said, heading down the mountain, this raindrop is like a person, and a person is not going to carve out a canyon by itself. It's going to take a whole river. It's going to take a lot of time. And so in society, I feel like you could liken that to people not being able to do things all on their own when they say self-made. What does that mean? That's just an ego concept, in my opinion. People come together as a community, like ants when they're building a colony. People can also come together as a community and make really big things happen. It's going to take time, but eventually you can carve out that metaphorical river or carve out the metaphorical canyon for the water to eventually flow down. The raindrop in of itself is not going to do that, but it's going to take a whole rainstorm with a whole bunch of raindrops that turns into the snowpack that melts down. You get the idea. So it takes a team to make a change, but it also takes one single raindrop to start the process. It just has to accumulate. There's got to be a tipping point. That raindrop is the tipping point, and
Yeah, good one.
similarly, you can liken that to people. Yeah, man.
Yeah. Yeah,
Everybody
that's
takes this
yeah.
stand.
When that one person or raindrop puts on the extra 20-pound vest and generates a little bit of resistance or challenge, it might attract someone else or another raindrop to go, oh yeah, that's interesting. Let me try that too. And you're right. Then you get this little eddy, or you get this little pool off to the side. Or I know, isn't it funny too, because there's this idea when I don't know if, I'm sure 100% you felt this, had to have, uh where in our evolution of, say, teenager to manhood, or adolescence into adulthood, where there's like, don't conform, like, don't just do what everybody else is doing. Like, that's just going with the herd, and paving a new path on our own is how we form our individuality and our figure out where we are and who we are in the world. And it's funny because as I get a little older, I'm like, I just like running with the herd now. Like, I'm okay if you I'm okay if you look at me and say he's a conformist. He's just doing what everybody else is doing. I don't know. There's like this really cool balance between being with the herd, but also standing outside of the pack and just being a loner, and just being individual. I don't know. What do you where are you at with all that these days?
Yeah, I think one can be an overcorrection to another. I think people tend to overreact. Like when you're a teenager, right? You get the sense of freedom, and your hormones kick in, and all of a sudden you're growing into like a man, and you have muscle, and you're stronger. Mentally, you start this process of, my brain's growing, and there's different synaptic connections, and there's different things going on in my brain now, and now I'm becoming more intelligent as a result of that, and now my perception of the world is expanding. So as a result of that, I might think that my way is the way. Maybe that's the case, but that could lead to, this overcorrection of like, I don't like what the previous generation's done. I want to do it different just because I want to prove the point. And I think the intention changes as you get older. Um, it changes from I want to show them to, well, I just want to find out for myself what really, like, what is my way,
Mm,
and not what is my way when you set up 20 pound weight vest
mm.
just to prove a point on the mountaintop raindrop idea.
Yeah.
Like, let me tap into this, call it God, call it spirit, Krishna, whatever you call this life force within or out here. Um, Tap into that, and you'll find out what way do you move in life. I think you just find that the act of surrendering to that
Mm,
is not, it's an active surrender, because then it brings up this idea that you're not surrendering and just being like, oh, I'm gonna go lay in bed and wait for everything else. Well, it's like, oh, I'm gonna surrender to this inevitable thing that's welling up inside of me, this intuition of like how I want to live my life. And as a result, I think that's where the idea of dharma comes through. And then you live your dharma, and then you go out into the world and truly live with, like, as that river flowing effortlessly down towards
mm.
whatever destination. Who cares? Like, why we have to pretend to know just because we want to prove a point? Because we don't want to go the other way. It's because everybody else does. Who cares if you do or don't? They're labeled at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Conformist, not, it divides people. It's all division. Like,
Mm,
who cares about any of that? It's so beyond that.
yeah. Yeah.
If you can see it from that perspective,
Yeah.
tapping in.
Good answer, man. That's cool. Well, I'm really excited uh for this chance here, Jesse, because well, first of all, you're teaching class here on Saturdays at 8 a.m. and currently these classes are being offered just in studio, not live stream. But if you're listening to this podcast and you want to take Jesse's class, send me a message. I'll set up his 8 a.m. to be a live stream, and you can join in because we have our camera set up in the room and you can hear Jesse, see Jesse, and practice with him. So if that's something you're interested in, let me know and I'll set it up. And but I would like to, well, I've really enjoyed the opportunity to always hear your thoughts, Jesse, and I knew this was going to be fun. So I really do appreciate you taking time out of your day to, just talk with me and share some of your ideas. And I'm just so excited that you're here in town, and I got a chance to watch all your adventures and travels and via your social media. And so anyone listening, please follow Jesse over on Instagram. Can you remind me? I want to get it right. I think it's J underscore man underscore moves. Do I got that right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
you got it.
it's at the letter J underscore man underscore moves. And that's pretty much the best way to find Jesse because he's posting all the time. I like the post you did the other day. You set up some gymnastic rings, or maybe they were already set up there in one of the sea grape groves that are on our coast here, and you were doing some pretty amazing like different body rotation movements that are like more gymnast orientated. And I know like you're strong and physically active and always pushing the boundaries in relation to like the joy that comes from using our bodies. And so you're always mixing it up, whether it's yoga, some sort of physical fitness, hit workout, gymnastic element. You're always sharing information about healthy smoothie recipes that you like to make. And so I've been really enjoying following everything that you've been doing. So keep up all that good work too, man.
Yeah, thank you, Todd. I mean, there's so much to be said for you as well. Like, thank you for doing this and having me.
Mm.
It's a blessing to be able to share this with people. That's the essence of life. And I can capture this information and through lived experience turn it into wisdom, like alchemized into wisdom, and it's just a blessing to be able to share with people and constantly realize I'm just a beginner, man. We all are, and
I
we just constantly take on new stuff. And so I really appreciate the idea, like you being an inspiration, having a studio, and you spending the majority of your life dedicated to this practice, beautiful practice of Ashtanga yoga, and carrying that torch. It's really inspiring because in a different way, it will inspires others to do great things in their life. It's certainly as for me. You know,
Well,
I,
Jesse,
I could go out in the world and just say
I
I'm
appreciate
planting my
that.
flag. I want to do it, and then I
Yeah,
get to figure out what I'm about. What I get to test my metal. What do I have within? How do I express it?
yeah,
So I really do appreciate you
yeah,
for
man.
me and for other people.
I
You and
hear you,
Tamara.
Jesse. Well, thank you so much, and
Yeah.
I will see you in just like another day or two.
Sure will, man. If we have waves before that, I think next week. On a side note, I think next week's getting some waves, but I will see you Saturday. We'll have to plan a trip, a little coast trip, and do some surfing at some point because
For
the storm
sure.
turns north. We're getting some epic waves.
Oh, I know, because right now we're talking about Hurricane Lee. I'm actually, when those of you listening to this podcast, Jesse and I are recording it about a week before, so I'm going to release this on next Friday, not this one, but the next. And so, yeah, we have Hurricane Lee, Cat 4, hovering above where Caribbean right now, like Puerto Rico, is somewhere out there, a little bit, but it looks like it's being a Cat 4. And on Tuesday, the September 12th, I think we're gonna know a little more like which way is this guy gonna go. It could set up for the most perfect storm to just go right around and not make landfall. That's what I'm crossing my fingers right now. September in Florida. Oh boy. Make sure.
Fingers crossed, toes crossed,
Yeah. And don't and
all the above.
make sure you don't have to go to Home Depot. That's all I can say. Like if you think you're gonna need something, go get it now. Don't wait
Right now,
until the day before the storm and run to Home Depot.
dude. There is something about coming back to Florida and you trade, the blizzards, the winter storms for hurricanes. Sometimes you forget, you get to practice the breathing and the yoga. Like, where do I put that in practice? In a Home Depot during a hurricane. That's where you put it in practice.
Oh yeah, baby.
People are freaking out and like,
Oh
hey,
yeah.
time to breathe, man. Time to breathe.
Oh, I
We
know.
gotta, we gotta not not
When that
rest.
tropical storm was coming up on Southern California, and then we have family over there, and so then there was like an earthquake at the same time that it downgraded from a hurricane to a tropical storm. So it was obvious there would be some rain, but it wasn't going to be nothing like a Cat 5. And
Right.
someone called it a hurricane. They said we had our first hurricane, and I was just kind of cracking up like, oh boy, man, I know living here in Florida, like it's serious business when those storms are creeping up on you. And do you remember that one that was off the coast? It was like a category 4 or 5 that just sat right over Freeport and it just stalled. Like it was
Yep.
coming straight for us. And all the forecasters were saying, I don't remember what the name of that storm was, but it was like 2 or 3 years ago. And they go, it's going north, it's going north, it's going north. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to put my shutters up. We'll be fine. It's going north. But man, when that thing got closer, I freaked out. I put shutters up on everything. I was like, dude,
Oh, dude.
how do we know? How do they know it's going to go north all of a sudden? And it just sat there and buzz sawed and then just shot north. It was the most crazy, like, it just felt like a Russian roulette situation. Like, what's going to happen? It's a tense thing. And then you're right, though. Just breathing through that and just be like, I'm okay. Whatever happens, I'm okay.
The brain is a master of planning for the future.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
at least it tries to. It tries to anticipate. It's like the master anticipator, and comes with some baggage. It's
Yeah.
Hurricane Dorian. Hurricane Dorian.
Dorian, good job, man. Dorian. I'll
Dorian.
never forget Dorian. That was an experience.
That was wild. Todd,
Um,
that was wild.
yeah. Well,
Yeah, man.
Hurricane Lee, let's see what you do. And we'll keep you all posted.
Yeah, we'll let you know if the
That's-
podcast makes it out.
yeah. If yeah, I was gonna say something silly like if you don't hear this podcast, then you know something. But
You're gonna find it buried under this rock pile in the
yeah,
archives. Like, we didn't make it, but here's the podcast.
yeah, yeah, it's like a time capsule. Like 2,000 years from now, all of a sudden it gets dug out of the internet ethers. Oh, that's what happened.
It was
All right,
3,000 feet under the ocean. Yeah, man.
all right, Jess, we better get off before we start getting really weird. All right, I'll catch up with you soon. Thanks, man.
Yeah, dude. Thank you, Todd. I appreciate you.
Have a good one.